Hello again, it's me, Elliot. I just wanted to do a quick video today just to follow up on my previous video talking about all of these Criterion 4K announcements. Criterion have now made their full November announcements, so we can have a look at some of the finer details about these releases, and there's some pretty interesting things to talk about in terms of pricing and some of the artwork choices and just the 4K details in general. Before we get into all of that, I just want to ask you a quick favour, if you don't mind. I want to gather some data around how people buy their Criterion Blu-rays and DVDs. Basically, I want to know, do you tend to buy your Criterion discs at full price, or do you wait for one of these sales, whether that's 30% off or 50% off? Don't be ashamed if you're someone that only buys during the sales, because I'm pretty much one of those people. I will buy the odd title as soon as it comes out. Like, for example, Tarkovsky's Mirror, I didn't get in a sale because there was no sale here in the UK when it came out. But for the most part, I do most of my Criterion buying during the 50% off sales. So yeah, I just basically want to know, how do you buy your Criterion discs? Do you tend to buy at full price or when there's some kind of sale? Okay, let's talk about these 4K announcements. So we're going to talk about Citizen Kane first, because that's the big one that has most people talking. So Citizen Kane is releasing on November 23rd, 2021. It's going to be spy number 1104. So it's not a nice clean number. They could have gone for 1100, but I don't know, maybe some kind of scheduling stopped them from doing that. Now, looking at the purchase options for Citizen Kane, there is the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo pack, and this interestingly retails at $59.95, so that is quite pricey. But there are 4 discs in this set, and we're going to talk about the pricing of the other 4K discs in a moment. But already you can pre-order this at a bit of a discount for $47.96. And then there is also a 3-disc Blu-ray set that is recommended retail price of $49.95. And there's a bit off that as well if you wanted to pre-order that. So compared to the normal Criterion Blu-ray prices, there's only a markup of $10 per disc. Now, I thought it could have even been more than this, so I'm actually pretty happy with that, particularly because if you get these during a sale when they're 50% off, that is if they're going to be included in the usual 50% off sales. That isn't for certain yet. Who knows? I guess we'll find out in November during the Barnes & Noble sale, funnily enough, when all of these first come out. So as you would expect with the higher price point for this Citizen Kane release, it is an absolutely stacked release with tons of special features and extras. And I'm not going to sit here and just list them to you because that would take a few minutes. So I'd advise going over to the Criterion website and just having a look at all of the special features. But this seems like it's totally going to be worth the money in terms of what you actually get in the package. And I'm very interested to hear the new audio commentary that was recorded this year for the Citizen Kane release. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of Citizen Kane is the artwork that has been presented on the website. Now, this has already caused a bit of commotion, a bit of a stir in certain Facebook groups, because they have gone for a pretty minimal, stylish kind of cover where it just has the K for Kane on the front of the cover. And this is taken directly from the typeface from some of the posters for Citizen Kane. So yeah, it's very minimal, and at first kind of reaction to it, I'm not totally taken by this. I kind of wish they had gone for something a bit more iconic from the film. You know, there are so many famous, even just the stills from the film could have been a good cover, but perhaps this will grow on me. And to be honest, you know, the packaging is, for me, one of the least important things about a Criterion release. Oh, and of course, I forgot to mention that this disc will have Dolby Vision HDR on the 4K. There was no mention about the audio track and what that's going to be like. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what that Dolby Vision treatment looks like on Citizen Kane. Okay, moving on, also releasing on November 23rd is Menace to Society. And as I mentioned in the previous video, I haven't seen this film, although I'm very excited to finally see it. So I don't really have much to say about this. There's a bunch of special features on the release, which looks, great. And then in terms of the pricing, this is probably what we're going to see as the standard pricing for 4K Criterions. So that is recommended retail price of $49.95, and you can already pre-order it for $39.96. So basically, the 4K discs in general just look like they're going to be $10 more than the typical Criterion Blu-ray. And if you're buying in a 50% off sale, that means they're only going to be $5 more. So for me, that doesn't seem like much in terms of admission price for one of these 4K releases. And what this signifies to me is that, and bear in mind, I know nothing about the inner workings of Criterion and their business model, but I imagine they already make pretty good margins on these discs because of how they price their releases. So I'm very happy actually at how these are priced. Now let's just talk a bit about Mulholland Drive, which is already in the collection. So the 4K disc is going to still be spy number 779. This is releasing a week before those other two, so that's November 16th. And again, like with Menace to Society, it has the same price point, which is recommended retail price of, let's just call it $50. Now with this release, the only difference, as far as I can tell, compared to the existing Criterion Blu-ray of Mulholland Drive, is the addition of the new 4K disc, which is taken from a new 4K digital restoration, which is the same one that I think is going to be used by Studio Canal here in Europe. So very interesting because they're not adding any extra special features for this release. It is purely only the film presented from a new restoration. They mention that there is Dolby Vision HDR on Mulholland Drive, but there is no Dolby Atmos. It just says 5.1 surround DTS. So I'm sure it'll sound great and look great. So I'm very excited to check this out. So those are the 3 4K titles announced for this coming November, which has me so excited. And this means that the other titles they announced last week, so that's The Red Shoes, A Hard Day's Night, and The Piano, they are probably going to be coming for the December announcements. And I'd imagine all 3 of those will come in December, but who knows, I might be wrong on that one. Now, it'll be interesting going forward if Criterion will keep up a pace of 3 4K discs a month. Something that I didn't note before is that when you look at the pages on the Criterion website for these 4K releases, in particular Citizen Kane and Menace to Society, there is no mention of a DVD release. So perhaps this looks like Criterion may be retiring DVD releases altogether. I imagine they'll keep current DVDs in print for a while, but it seems like there is no Citizen Kane DVD from Criterion and no Menace to Society DVD from Criterion. So very interesting indeed. So rounding out the November Blu-ray announcements from Criterion, we have Once Upon a Time in China, the complete films. This will be spy number 1103, and this will be releasing on November 16th. And it's priced quite expensive, but you get 6 discs. I think it's going to be $124.95 recommended retail price. Now, I know of these films. I've never seen them, and I did in fact previously own the UK release of these films, and they sat on my shelf for a few years unwatched, and I basically just sold them because I thought, I don't know when I'm going to get round to watching these. And a few people have told me these films are incredible, but I've changed as a person, and I'm going to talk a bit more about my collecting habits, and how they've changed in a future video. But yeah, that was a release that I had. It was the Eureka Entertainment release, and I had every intention of watching it when I bought it, but I was just looking at it on the shelf going, I don't know when I'm going to watch this. And if I ever want to watch these films, I will just buy them again. So I don't think I'm going to pick this release up from Criterion anytime soon, but perhaps in the future I'll come back to these. But do let me know if you're excited for this, because I know there are a lot of fans of these kinds of movies. And last up, releasing on November 2nd is La Strada. So this is spy number 219. This is the Blu-ray upgrade of Federico Fellini's La Strada. Now this was included in the big Fellini box set that came out last year. So there's no reason for me to buy this disc because, you know, it's in the set already. But this is good. This is good for people that perhaps want to just dip their toes in Fellini waters. They don't want to buy the big box set all at once. So it's exciting for more people just to discover Fellini and, you know, get involved with his movies, because I love La Strada. And I've said before, Fellini is one of my favourite filmmakers, and that Criterion box set of all of his films, or most of his films, was my favourite release of last year. So highly recommend getting La Strada. So that pretty much does it. That's another video focused on Criterion 4K stuff. I'm going to give it a rest for a bit. I probably won't talk about Criterion 4K until we see these films being released. So I'm going to mix it up a bit on the channel. I'll talk about some different things coming soon, but do let me know your final thoughts on these new Criterion announcements. Anyway, stay well and keep watching great films.